What's up YouTube? Happy Saturday. Welcome into the Rockstarflipper YouTube channel. Thank you guys for coming back and joining me, and welcome to any of you that might be new viewers. So you probably read the title, and I don't want to make this story too long, but I wanted to make sure I got all the facts correct so I could relay them to you as an audience. I'm filming on my phone, so if the audio is a little off, my camera battery died, it's charging, so I didn't want to wait for it. But long story short, had somebody that I know, a very, very good seller, sell a pair of jeans, which the buyer opened a return after receiving them for item not as described, item damaged. And so they were distressed jeans, and I guess the buyer said they were like damaged or ripped or torn or something, which they weren't. It was a false item not as described. So because the buyer opened the case as item not as described, it forces you as the seller, regardless of your policies, to accept it and pay the return label, which in this case was padded flat rate. So $6.90. Well, we all have that question. I see it a lot about, buyers opening false item not as described just so that you have to pay the shipping, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's great here is the seller in this case asked the buyer to provide photos of the damage, which the buyer provided photos of the jeans perfectly fine the way that they were supposed to come in the distressed, normal looking fashion. So that's when the seller, my friend, said, hey, these jeans aren't actually damaged. That's how they're supposed to be. That's the way they were sold. Here's the original pictures and the original listing, and they're not item is not as described. However, I'll still take them back and refund you, but I need you to close the case and mail them back. Now, the justification for this was the buyer should have opened a case for change my mind and then been responsible for covering the shipping, as opposed to the seller, my friend, covering the shipping because of item not as described. Hopefully you're still with me and you follow that. So the buyer actually did close the case, and then the buyer realized that they were going to have to pay the shipping. Now, I don't know if the buyer was trying to get over and just trying not to pay the shipping back, or if they were legitimately a newer buyer, which is what I'm leaning towards because I believe they only had a few feedback, and they didn't realize what they were doing when they closed the case, which caused them to, one, lose buyer protection, and two, have to pay for the label back. So when that got to that point, they called eBay and said, hey, I opened a case for item not as described. The seller, my friend, asked me to close the case, which I did, and now they want me to return it and I have to pay the shipping label. So eBay said, no, they shouldn't have asked you to close the case. They should have escalated that, or they should have accepted the return, brought the item in and paid for your jeans, and covered the label, which is wrong as well. The seller should not have had to pay for the label. So eBay escalated the case because there was no way to reopen it. The buyer couldn't reopen the case. So eBay went ahead and escalated it, which immediately gave my friend, the seller, a ding for item defect. And not because of the item, but because of responding to a case. It was automatically escalated and responded to. Defect. So then, now that the defect's open, not only did she get the defect, now she still has to pay the return shipping label, and now the buyer's mad because of what she did and is going to leave negative feedback, which eBay is now not going to remove and help with, maybe, at this point. So fast forward to the next day, she spoke with me for a little bit, and I advised her to go ahead and call eBay and take it up with a supervisor because there was clearly proof in the pictures and the messages that the item was not as described. It was actually as described and should not have ended up the way it ended up. So they did realize that. They removed the defect. She's still going to take the item back and give a refund. I don't know if she is going to get the label money back or if they're going to allow her to refund less the label cost because it wasn't her fault. Not 100% sure on that, but at least she's going to lose the defect, which will allow her to fight the negative. If she gets a negative, she's probably going to get one. If you're watching, sorry, you are. But hopefully it'll be removable. So here's my advice to you guys in this situation. If somebody opens a false item not as described and the item is actually as described, first, do not respond to the case immediately. Respond to the customer with a message asking for proof of the item not as described. If they don't send it and they just leave the return open, call eBay. eBay may force you to take the return. That's fine. You can argue later for the cost of the label if you believe it was false. Second, if they respond with pictures showing damage, accept the return, take it back. If there is no damage, like in this case, make sure that you show it eBay. Call eBay before you accept the return. eBay can change the return from item not as described to change mine, which you then can accept, and the buyer will have to pay the return shipping label, as they should. If there's nothing wrong with the item and you described it correctly, it's not your fault, not your problem, not your shipping label, unless of course you offer free returns. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But that's my advice to you, is call eBay immediately. If you have concierge, awesome. If you don't, wait on hold, it's worth it. Don't let buyers get away with doing false item not as described, because it ruins it for all of us. It ruins it for the rest of us. And even though it may only be once a month or once a year or a couple times a year, you know, 20 bucks, 30 bucks, is it worth your time? Some people are going to comment and say it's not worth your time. I think it is worth your time. I think the more buyers that get away with it, the more buyers that try it, you're losing money. All you have when you do this business is your time, at least if you're full-time. If you're part-time, maybe it's not worth it. But it's something that I would fight 100%. So that is the tip I have for you guys. I don't want to see anybody else get into this situation. So number one, don't ask the buyer to close it. It's a big no-no. Contact eBay and ask them to switch the return reason so you don't pay the label. And if it worse comes to worse, accept the return, get the item back, and then call eBay before you issue the refund to fight either for the label cost or to reduce the amount of the refund to cover the label for a false item not as described, because then you'll be in possession of the item and you could take more photos to back up the evidence of it being as described. So hopefully you guys have a great weekend. Hopefully your sales are good. Hopefully you don't have any return issues. I haven't had any in a while, so thank goodness. Please check out the description box down below this video. Before you leave, please go down there and take a look at it. There's some amazing links. There's the Amazon links for all the equipment I use to produce these videos. Sorry I don't have the light kit on. It's hurting my eyes right now. There's the link to my eBay store if you want to look through it. Also, if you go shopping on eBay or Amazon, as long as you navigate to those websites first using my links, no matter what you buy, whether it's from me or from someone else, it benefits me, it supports this channel, it allows me to continue making great videos and tips for you guys. So I really would appreciate if you would do that every time you go shopping on eBay or Amazon. Come back to my channel and link into it using those links, and then do your shopping. Also, my website, rockstarflipperonline.com, it's mostly done. It's up, it's live, and you can join my free email list, and I would appreciate getting your emails, as I'm going to be updating the podcast, the website, the mailing list, the VIP group, and free bolo list coming out for everyone. I'm going to put out a free bolo to everyone who's a part of the email list. So make sure you get on there, rockstarflipperonline.com. And until next time, I'll see you guys then.